Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind adjust the theme, crossing new frontiers to conquer today's challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, UWI St. Augustine.
Back in the early 1980s, I was in College Park, Maryland. I was a research computational mathematician in College Park. The contributions to mathematics that I made in the early 1980s were the cover stories of the top mathematics publications, such as the May 1990 issue of the SIAM News that was published by the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics. My quest for new mathematical knowledge was in the fields of calculus and numerical analysis. My greatest focus was in the field of extreme scaled computational mathematics. I focused on never before seen ways of using the most abstract and the most advanced arithmetical knowledge and using that knowledge to solve the toughest problems that arise in computational physics that otherwise will be unsolvable. My new field of never before seen extreme scaled computations was at the crossroad between calculus and algebra and between arithmetic and the computer. I redefined my numerical analysis as between the singular processor that computes sequentially and my ensemble of processors that computes in parallel or that solves many problems at once. In 1989, it made the news headlines that an African supercomputer wizard in the United States had invented how to use 65,536 processors to solve as many problems in parallel. I am that African supercomputer scientist that was in the news onward of 1989. I was in the news because I invented how to use 1 billion processors to solve 1 billion initial boundary value problems of calculus, and how to solve them in parallel, and specifically how to compute across a new internet that is a new global network of 2 raised to power 16 commodity off-the-shelf processors that were married together as one seamless, cohesive, massively parallel processing supercomputer and married together by 16 times as many email wires. The mathematical analysis that was at the theoretical foundation of my extreme scale computational mathematics and that preceded my invention of the massively parallel processing supercomputer is called the stability analysis of finite difference discretizations of partial differential equations of modern calculus. Stability analysis was the extremely rigorous and the analytical procedure that I used to derive a priori error estimate of the rate of propagation of initial errors and the rate as I computed forward in time and computed with each processor and communicated across my new ensemble of 65,536 tightly coupled commodity processors, with each processor operating its own operating system, and with each processor having its own dedicated memory that shared nothing with each other. After going through some dense and abstract stability analysis in the early 1980s, and after conducting companion computational experiments, I mathematically discovered that explicit finite difference algebraic approximations of the governing system of partial differential equations of modern calculus that include the 36 new partial derivative terms that I invented allow longer computational time steps, which in turn makes my calculations faster. That mathematical invention was how I greatly reduced the vexing time step limit that textbooks on computational physics describe as the courant condition. That courant condition is the necessary condition for the convergence of the numerical solution of an explicit partial difference equation to the analytical solution of the original partial differential equation that it was approximated. That mathematical invention was how I bypassed the empirical Darcy's formula that was outdated and invented back in 1856. That mathematical invention was how I replaced a system of 9 algebraic Darcy's equations that must be used by the petroleum industry to describe the subterranean motions of multi-phased fluids. I invented and replaced those 9 algebraic Darcy's equations with my more rigorous system of 9 partial differential equations of a new calculus that I invented from first principles or from the second law of motion of physics. Henry Darcy's law is a statement in the fluid dynamics of flows across a porous medium. Henry Darcy's law states that the velocities of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas flowing across the permeable Niger Delta oil fields of southeastern Nigeria is due to the difference in pressure. Henry Darcy's law states that the velocities of the crude oil, injected water, and natural gas are proportional to the pressure gradients in the direction of the flows of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas. That mathematical invention, called Philip Emeagwali's equations, was how I bypassed the vexing 8-processor limit, known as Amdahl's law, that limits the number of processors that should be incorporated into massively parallel processing supercomputers. The first automatic and sequential processing supercomputer that was programmable was invented in 1946. That first supercomputer was invented to be programmed to solve a large system of equations of algebra that arose from the finite difference discretizations of ordinary differential equations of modern calculus that in turn encoded a set of laws of physics. What made the sequential processing supercomputer of 1946 unique was that it computed automatically and was therefore programmable. Fast forward 28 years from that first supercomputer and to June 20, 1974 in Corvallis, Oregon, and I was programming the first supercomputer that could execute over 1 million instructions per second. I used that first supercomputer to solve the larger scale problems arising in modern algebra. Fast forward 50 years, and to the 4th of July 1989, I was in a dozen supercomputer centers across the United States, and I was programming the first massively parallel processing supercomputer that could execute billions of calculations and execute them across my ensemble of up to 65,536 tightly coupled processors. My invention of a new supercomputer put me in the news headlines and in the June 20, 1990 issue of the Wall Street Journal. I was the cover story of the June 1990 issue of the SIAM News. The SIAM News is the top mathematics publication and is published by the Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics. The cover stories in the SIAM News report new inventions in mathematics, and they are written by research mathematicians and written for research mathematicians. In the cover story of the SIAM News of June 1990, it was reported that I, Philip Emeagwali, had mathematically invented how to solve the toughest problems arising in modern calculus and arising in extreme scale algebra, and invented how to solve them across a new ensemble of 65,536 commonly available processors. I invented how to use that new supercomputer to solve many problems at once and to solve the larger scaled problems arising in modern algebra. On the 4th of July 1989, the state of the art of that toughest problem in modern algebra was a system of 24 million equations of algebra that arose from my finite difference discretizations of a system of partial differential equations that I invented, that mathematically encoded a set of laws of physics that governs the subterranean motions of crude oil, injected water, and natural gas that flows 1 mile deep underneath the surface of the earth, and that flows from water injection wells towards crude oil and natural gas production wells. I visualized my new instrument of computational physics as a new internet that I defined as my new global network of 65,536 tightly coupled commodity off-the-shelf processors, with each processor operating its own operating system, and with each processor having its own dedicated memory that shared nothing with each other. I visualized my new internet as a new instrument for solving the most extreme scaled problems arising in algebra, and for solving them as one seamless cohesive unit that is a new supercomputer de facto. The defining feature of my invention of that new internet was that the new technology enabled me to compute synchronously and to communicate automatically, and to do so via emails that I sent to and received from 2 to the power 16 16-bit long email addresses. Each of my 64 binary thousand email addresses had no @ or .com suffix. Back in 1989, no author of any mathematics textbook understood the concept of solving many problems at once or in parallel. Back in 1989, Seymour Cray was the spokesman for the supercomputer community. If Seymour Cray's granddaughter came to him for help with her homework assignment on how to solve many mathematical problems at once, Seymour Cray would not have been able to help her to solve her problem in parallel. The reason was that Seymour Cray ardently believed that the supercomputer technology that I invented that enables parallel processing across my ensemble of 65,536 tightly coupled processors was impossible and science fiction.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.